Alex Kain has long been passionate about entrepreneurship, launching several tech startups and working in diverse roles like dating agency, consultant, private investigator, and comedian. Over time, he became skilled at helping businesses improve productivity and streamline operations. However, as his career progressed, Alex became increasingly aware of the growing social inequities around him, barriers to opportunity, unequal access, and systemic injustice. This sparked a shift in his focus. Rather than solely optimizing business systems, he began applying his skills to address deeper societal issues. Inspired to redefine success, Alex started developing a philosophy that promotes equity, inclusivity, and social responsibility as essential components of true progress.
Alex Kain, author of The Philosophy. Welcome to the Kofkin Bond podcast, or what we call Everyday Heroes. So everyone has a story, Alex. We've known each other for a number of years. You've been a client here for a number of years, and when we caught up for lunch about a year ago, you said you were off to Bali to finish your book, and here is the book. So it's, The Philosophy. So it's you're getting quite a lot of traction on it and getting a lot of interviews done, etc. So let's see if I can challenge you in any polite way at the moment today, hey? So
Be my guest.
yeah, no, you're my guest today, Alice. So you're my guest. So welcome to our podcast. But I'm actually just going to start basically, what prompted you to write the philosophy? What was there any particular moment or experience that made you question, basically the world that we live under today? So, what was that one unique thing that said, you know what, I'm sick of talking about this. I'm actually going to write a book on it.
Well,
And I thought about you the other day. I went to see the play George Orwell's 1984. So it's no,
it's great to be in good company.
that's correct. So, but I just thought it was so well done. The play, it was for a theatre production. It was done really really well, in line very much with both the book and the movie. But I must admit, I was looking at that world and I was thinking of you as I was watching it. So in a positive way.
Thank you. A little dystopian, but here we go.
Yes. Yeah.
So, look, I guess there's not one particular moment I could point at. I think it's just a lived experience of, um, you know, growing up and in a middle class family, and I guess learning to aim for success, whatever that means, and however that's been modeled to us, right? And I guess going along on my way, and I've had so many different careers in my life. You know, I was a private investigator. I worked in a dating agency. I was a stand-up comedian. I've done a heap of stuff. And I guess eventually I got
Quite successful in IT as well. You forgot that one.
the IT one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
That's my latest, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think as I was climbing my little ladder and finding my little piece of success, I started to look around me and I felt that that definition of success rang hollow for me. Um, I felt that achieving success in my own right was not really success when I saw how tough people were doing it around me. And I started to question whether, am I doing something wrong? Because this is what I've always been told to do: go out there, make money, make more money, and do what I can and have a good life. Um, And I just felt that was tough to keep doing. And I either keep doing it or I challenge it. And I guess the idea for the book came from that realization that I don't have to accept it. You know, we often do because it's just such a big thing to change. But I chose to question everything. Um, and I guess that's what I've been doing in my business, right? You mentioned my IT business. So I go into businesses and I help them optimize what they do. I analyze their systems, their processes, that sort of thing. And so I took that same skill set and applied it to society and started questioning our political system, business, economics, everything. And that's really where the book came from.
Alex, we have in here our own Kofkin Bond charitable giving program, which we are very proud of. And both of my parents were pretty much orphans. So from that perspective, and my sister and I were given a very good life. So I think we were blessed by the parents we chose. So it's, But one of the things in respect to our charitable giving program that is always, and I'll try not to get political, but that has always annoyed me about all governments around the world, no matter what colour tie they're wearing, is they throw money at something without looking at what the potential impact is or where that money's going or the waste that can actually be involved in that money, sometimes just to get political points, not to actually make any difference. And I've seen that, and I've got a lot of Indigenous friends who do a lot of work in Indigenous communities where money's thrown at them, but nothing filters down.
Well, it's often a checkbox, isn't it?
It is, that's correct. Slide number 7 on the PowerPoint, that we've done it, tick the box.
Yeah.
Whereas even when we choose causes to support, which are usually around education, which I know is a big thing in your book as well, but or in your case, doing education correctly, which I agree with, by the way. So it's you're not going to get debated. I might debate you just for the hell of it. So it's but looking at the cause and making sure that it is making a meaningful change and where the money is actually going is something that, and maybe it's because it's our money that we've worked for and we've decided to part with to help.
Yeah.
But why do you think governments just are doing it in respect to, do you think it's just a political thing, tick the boxes, say we've done it, we're good people, or is it just easy to give away other people's money? What are your thoughts on that?
I think government is generally well intentioned, but sometimes the execution fails.
Yeah.
And I think, when they are lobbied or, government's not going to give away money unless there's a force to make them. And so if they're lobbied and they feel that, well, if we do that, we're seen to be doing good. The question is whether they're doing good. And often, do they have the ability, capacity, and will to measure it and ensure that it goes where it needs to go? No, not really always. Um, my beef. Look, I think we need charity. We need to look after those who are less fortunate. But I have a beef with the system that creates the need for charity. So, we need to keep doing that. We need to feed the homeless. We need to help those who are less fortunate. But at the same time, we need to stem it at the cause and not just keep enabling the symptom. And so, I admire anyone who's, giving away to charity and helping those less fortunate. But the book, and I guess what I'm questioning is, what can we do so we don't have less fortunate people? And that's really what I'm trying to address.
It's interesting you say that. I was on the board of directors for 5 years of a wonderful charity called Carry On. It's 94 years old now, supporting homeless veterans and so providing 40,000 nights accommodation to homeless veterans. But one of the things I actually said was, why are there so many homeless veterans? Where are we failing those veterans? Why are they having addictions? Why are they addicted to gambling, alcohol, drugs? Why are they homeless? Why are their marriages breaking down? Where as a society are we failing? In this case, our veterans. So so what is that root cause? Because realistically, you don't want a need for that charity. That charity should not have to exist.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the keys. Now, it always will, but I've also said, though, on the other side, if I'm going to sit on the other side of the fence, that I am, from a political perspective, very centrist, where I do believe we do need to support, people who are less fortunate without any doubt. But at the same time, you need a strong economy to be able to do that properly. So it does go both ways.
Yeah.
The second part of that, though, when it comes to any form of social security, and I'm not just talking the dole or whatever, because there's millions of different forms of social security, but social security is meant to be a safety net, not a hammock. So where is that root cause to be able to get people from that intergenerational reliance on government to be able to be self-reliant? And we've seen it over the time. My parents came from nothing when they came here. They had absolutely nothing. And I remember saying to my dad once, why did you take the risk, pack up everything, come in? He goes, pack up what? If I came here and failed, what are we going home? Have we failed? So we've had a great adventure. So But also too, I've got friends who have come here as refugees and have thrived. So it can actually happen. You don't have to come here and be in that perpetual motion of always receiving handouts. But what is that root stem? Is that come, and it's a question down here, so I'm jumping forward like a few, but does that come down to the education system? Does that come down to if somebody is given something for free that they haven't had to work for? And I've seen this in intergenerational wealth transfer as well, where you have a kid who's got 3 degrees, never worked a day in his life, complaining they can't live off the $300,000 a year in distribution they get.
Yeah.
So it's so does it come down to that education side as well?
I think I would like to see us in a care economy.
Yeah.
And I think, we define currency as anything that's productive, that creates momentum in the economy. Now, currency can be other forms of contribution, but we don't value them in the same way. So if I do volunteering, or if I look after elderly people, or if
Yeah.
I do anything, that contribution is not valued in the same way. And I think we need
But
to.
you're not looking for thanks in doing that either. You're not going and taking
No,
a selfie of yourself doing it and putting it on Instagram.
no,
You
but
just do it from the goodness of who you
if
are.
I want to do it out of the goodness of my heart, I still need to go and have another job or do something else to earn a living. So what we're saying is, well, you're going to have to, you're born, you come into this world, you need to survive. To survive, you need a roof over your head, you need food. To get that, you're not going to be given it. You're going to have to work for that for the rest of your life in some format. And the problem I see with that model is that there may be other things I would want to do, like helping other people, but I can't live off that. So that's not valued as contribution in the same way as having a job, earning a paycheck. And I question that, because is life all about just working for that money to feed ourselves? And I liken it in the book to, birds foraging for food. They spend all day looking for food. We dress it up as living, but effectively we're going to work to get the money to buy the food. We're not that different. And for me, it's
To
like,
feed and protect our offspring.
well, yeah, but
Mm.
it's a missed opportunity. That's what life appears to be for many people. If you've made it, great. But most people are still just surviving. And is that what life is meant to be for us? So I talk about in the book new models, new ways of thinking, which are quite challenging for people when you think within our current paradigm, which is, you have to produce something of value to receive the money to live. And I suspect that that's an old way of thinking, particularly in a world full of AI and the reshaping of our jobs and what's going to happen in the economy. I think we need to think differently now. What does being a human today really mean?
Alex, a good friend of mine, Chris Christophe, um, he's very successful in his own right, has a wonderful business, and is a genuinely lovely guy. He was one of our guests a couple of months ago. Now, Chris actually he decided he was going to do the CEO Vinny's sleep out. But rather than just going to the MCG and living in a cardboard box in a safe environment with a whole bunch of other people, he decided during lockdown with his wife to go and sleep out in the streets himself. No safety net, not knowing what to do, didn't know whether they were going to be safe, where they should sleep, how they should sleep in winter. He went and wanted to experience that firsthand of what it was actually like. And from that, over the last 5 years, he's now raised $1.5 million. He's the highest fundraiser for Vinny's Victoria Sleep Out because he experienced it.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, he experienced it in saying that he still knew he was going to go home to a warm shower and a house and a comfortable, very comfortable lifestyle. But it was that experience that he had that made him understand the importance of actually doing this. And so I think sometimes losing everything can actually also give you that genuine desire, or experiencing something which is totally uncomfortable and foreign to yourself can give you that desire to actually go and help.
Well, I think empathy, if you can put yourself in someone else's shoes, you can start to see a different viewpoint, because we're all seeing life through our own lenses that have been crafted for us through years of influences from our parents, our school, our peer groups. And often we don't step outside that view, and we live in an echo chamber.
It's not safe to do that, is it?
Well,
it's not safe to be uncomfortable.
but then we have to
It's not
question
safe
it.
to challenge ourselves.
Well, that's it. Then we
Yeah.
start questioning ourselves. Everything that we thought we knew becomes up for grabs. And I think then we live in an echo chamber where we just want to surround ourselves with people who agree with us and support our view of life, and people who look like us, think like us. And I think that's very dangerous.
Yeah. And algorithms are doing that even more so to
Yeah.
our younger generation now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's one of your comments in the book here, so which is touching on what you just said. You argue that many social systems, capitalism, politics, justice, are designed to fail at delivering equity. Can you unpack that by what you mean by designed to fail?
Well, we live in a capitalist society, so certain things are going to be supported by that model. So, for instance, if I've been hard done by and someone's ripped me off and I want to take them to court, I might need 100 grand to be able to take them to court to get justice. To me, that doesn't feel like justice. I believe we have a legal system, not a justice system. And some of those models don't take into account those people who cannot afford to get justice. So, if there are some services, I might get legal aid, maybe for a criminal case, maybe, but not for a civil case. So if someone's ripped me off, I could go to ASIC, I could go to Consumer Affairs. I may or may not get anywhere with that. But, I've personally had a situation with a business partner, and, it had cost me 100K to go to court, but he's got nothing. So I just walk away and lose what I've lost.
Yeah.
So those sorts of things just are built in, baked in, endemic to those systems, where you just go, well, sorry, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah. So basically, it's a case then that people can do wrong by you and get away with it.
Yeah.
And you were speaking off air just before, that there was a case you were speaking about on 3AW today where it's a 15-year-old who's
15-year-old who has been before the courts and bailed 50 times. And, there's talk about, well, what's happening with the bail laws and why are we letting them off? And, again, it's the same as our machete law. Okay, let's ban machetes. But now what's to stop another instrument from being a weapon?
Listen, I'll be honest with you. I've never understood the need for machetes around metropolitan Melbourne. I'd never had to cut my shrubs with a machete. So it's, but
It's a jungle out there.
yeah, I know. So it's literally. So yeah.
But I think that's part of the problem, is that we're treating symptoms. Again, this is a recurring theme in the book. So, you get rid of machetes, great. And now I can
Just
use
go back to baseball
a
bats
long
or cricket
blade
bat.
knife.
Yeah.
I can use my car as a weapon. I can use anything. It seems crazy that that's how we're tackling it, rather than looking at a child. And most of these are, 10, 12, 13-year-olds running around committing aggravated burglaries. How does a baby that is a blank slate turn into this within, just over a decade? It doesn't make sense. I'm saying something's going wrong between birth and that we're not addressing. And so we keep treating, well, let's increase the jail sentences, let's change bail laws, but we're not actually changing the people who are coming out of our system. And that's where I go into the whole thing about the education system.
I'll make mention of a charity that we support, which you should actually meet the guy who founded this charity, Bernie Shakeshaft, from Backtrack Boys in Armidale, New South Wales. Magnificent ABC one-on-one interview. with him, and that's how we found him, just looking at that interview. What he's done with the young Aboriginal boys there up in that town has been amazing, where it's basically bringing them on the farm, giving them purpose, giving them, and he does it with dogs, with cattle dogs and horses. And these kids all go on to actually have families, stay away from crime, have pride in themselves. And he's done it just out of the good. His story is hilarious. The podcast he gave, and he came from a fairly privileged upbringing in Sydney and, the North Shore of Sydney. A lot of people think of his surname that he's Indigenous. He's actually just a bit of a larrikin of a guy who said education wasn't his forte, but he loved wrangling, so it's, but he, a group of the kids when they were at school went across to India and they got to meet this little old lady that apparently was really good, and she's doing all this stuff and all these bandages, and everyone loved her and called her this. And it wasn't until a few years later that he realised that was Mother Teresa. So he just thought she was just this lovely little old lady. He had no idea who she was, So, but the amount of work he has done in actually helping these kids avoid and another friend of mine, a charity with support up in Northern Territory, Timmy Duggan, Hoops for Health. He helps young Indigenous kids avoid crime through healthy living, in his case through basketball. He was the first Indigenous player to play national basketball here in Australia from the Northern Territory. And once again, a wonderful human who's just given back. And beautiful family who's just given back to help these kids. And I think that's the key, is that give the kid an opportunity to thrive. But I think that's where a lot of us are missing that. It's like still throw money at them, but still have them running wild. So it's where's the opportunity to teach, to have them thrive, to get that energy that they have, to be able to put it towards good for themselves.
I think any human being with a meaning and purpose can thrive. When you feel lost and lacking, and that's when you get yourself into trouble. For me, the answer to a lot of these issues is through an overhauled education system, because we'd like to think that kids are getting the values and life skills that they need from the home, but there's no consistency and there's no guarantees that that's what's happening. So
we have so many broken homes nowadays.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, now, I mean, there's a lot of people of our parents' generation that probably shouldn't have stayed together, but did. But we do have a lot of young boys that are lost, not necessarily having a proper father figure or male role model in their lives, and their mothers are doing the best they possibly can. At the same time, I'm not having a go at the mothers by any sense in saying that. And then we have a lot of young girls who also don't have that strong male role model in their lives and can end up a little bit lost as well as a result of that too.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is that
I don't understand fathers who abandon their children, by the way. That's just that's a gripe of mine. Divorce does occur.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you abandon your children ever.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's how we think.
Yeah.
So if you haven't had that way of thinking, if you were brought up and abandoned, then you might propagate that. And I think, or you might try and make up for it and go the extra mile. You can go one of two ways. It's like the bullied becoming the bully.
Yeah.
So I think what I like to think about is that a blank slate of a child is a sponge at those very early ages, up to the age of 5 in particular. And so what they get exposed to primarily in the home, but we don't know what that looks like. So the single touch point that every child globally is exposed to potentially is school. And what is school? School is an institution for learning subject matter, primarily. I see that as a missed opportunity. I see school could be an incubator for nurturing great human beings. So what happens is you go to school, you start at preschool, kinder, and you work your way up, and you're gradually being exposed to more and more subject matter and stuff. You may learn some life skills or some values indirectly. They become like soft skills, really, but they're not really taught. They're not really, you're not surrounded by them. You might go and do an excursion to a museum to learn about another culture or so, but that's it, tick box. And I'm suggesting that school should become a way for us to nurture our next generation of human beings who have values like respect, empathy, and gratitude taught to them. Not just that you infer that from reading a text, it's actually taught and modeled to them in an age and culturally sensitive, appropriate way all through their schooling life. And you think about if every child globally went through that process, it'd be difficult to come out at the end of school and still want to commit aggravated burglaries and do things to people if all your life you've learnt about how to respect each other and the planet. And that's what I'm advocating.
I'm going to ask a couple of questions on that.
Mhm.
And we were at a professional development day a couple of months ago, and one of the underwriters from one of the insurers was there and talking about adult diagnosis at the moment with ADHD. And I just thought my personal Gen X offending both my parents and my children type of scenario that we're in as Gen Xers, we just say it. And I just thought, what a load of crap. And the reason being is because the amount of kids that are just see a GP for 7 minutes, he's got this, he's answer 5 questions, now give him a pill. If that was me at school, geez, I would have been on every tablet in the world because, for me, school was where I went to play sport and socialize, and every so often I had to study because apparently that's what it was for. But that's, so I needed to burn energy. And my father thankfully recognized that, so he had me involved in every sport in the world. Otherwise, I would have been a terror. But it seems now that it's easier in this world of instantaneous gratification or this world of ticking the boxes, as you say, of medicate the kid
Mm.
who can end up an absolute genius but we're actually medicating them into,
Oblivion.
that was the exact word I was about to come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But is it also a case where the education system, and this isn't necessarily saying that, when we were kids, it was better than, say, what the kids are today and things like that, but we we had to do face-to-face socializing. It wasn't a technology. It wasn't following our 4,000 friends on Instagram that we have no idea who they are. But not that I have that many people on Instagram, but it's at all. I don't do enough bikini shots, Alex. So but this,
Hang on. Let me just get that out
yeah,
of the way.
yeah, no. So blank that out. It's not a good look. So it's, but I think though you have a look. There are different generations, and I mentioned say Gen Xers as a result. We are commonly told no, that was meant to stay in your head. So what is it with education today? Is it a case of, well, they have to learn math, they have to learn English, they have to learn this, but their social skills don't seem to be there as much. I see the schools that, and maybe this is just an inherent bias I have because of my growing up in every sport in the world, but I see the schools that where sport is still an integral part of it, where you learn teamwork, you learn mateship, you learn, disappointment of losing, the thrill of winning. The Is it because that has inherently been taken away from the kids as of today, do you think? Or is it a case of that there's not that much of that personal socializing anymore? A lot of, my son will muck around, adult son will muck around with his friends playing something on game online.
Look, you and I, when we were growing up, we'd probably play cricket in the street. We'd
Yep.
go on our bikes and we'd go out all day and we'd come back before sunset.
Sometimes I'd come back 5 days later and my mum hadn't even known I'd gone. So, yeah,
Tony.
yeah. Oh, he's not here again. So, yeah.
But yeah, that was our life. Today, life is different. People are more indoor, on screens, doing things virtually, I guess. Look, I think, and look, we can't punish the world for how it is today. It's evolved,
Yeah.
technology. It's great too.
I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying it's very different, say, for our generation
Mm.
to necessarily accept, say, Bella's generation of, how she mixes with her friends and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I think in terms of school, I think there's still the sports, there's still the inter-school sports. You get to meet other people, you still have those experiences. I guess what I'm getting at is that I see the current education system as a throwback from the Industrial Revolution still, right? And
So do
all
I.
it was there was to mass produce as many people as you could through the system to get out into the workforce,
Yep.
right?
To earn money, to pay taxes,
To
to
increase
build an
the
economy.
GDP for the country,
Correct. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So we're still doing that. We're putting people through that meat machine and pushing them out the other side. And
I just thought of another brick in the wall film clip by
that's
Pink
what I
Floyd
was
when you
thinking
said that.
of
So
as
it's
well.
yep.
But
Sorry, Bella's thinking, what's Pink Floyd?
Yeah. But it really is a bit of a throwback. Now, I'm not saying all schools are like that. I'm not saying all curriculums are like that. We do see new initiatives. There's mindfulness in the school. There are, bringing people in to talk about mental health and a whole lot of range of things. So we are getting better at it, but it's not consistent. It's not everywhere. And we're not addressing a lot of things head on. So some of the uncomfortable things, talking about respecting different cultures and each other, you'll hear some of those things spoken about, but often it's like, okay, we've gone to the museum, we've seen the cultural museum, we brought in these kids from another school, check, we've done that, okay, back to the text. And I feel that we need to give as much importance to being human as we do to learning subject matter. The three pillars of the philosophy are respect, empathy, and gratitude. And I think if every child can embody those three things, it'd be very hard to be committing crimes and to be doing, not to be thinking so self-centeredly. And as part of the respect issue, there's four relationships I talk about in the book, right? Our relationship to the universe and nature, just the wonder and awe that we're even here. We're
Can you
all
explain that? Can you
miracles.
go a bit deeper on that for me?
Well,
Without necessarily taking psilocybin to do it, but let's go a little bit deeper on that. So it's
well, look, the four relationships I think are key. And the first one, our relationship to the universe, I think came to me through my father. My father and I would sit and watch The Wonderful World of Disney or Beyond 2000 or all these, or Cosmos, the original one, and
how is it so? Remember that famous line?
yeah.
So what was
Why
his?
is it
So that's it. Yep.
Um,
You did that perfectly.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I've been practicing that
You
for
just
years.
don't have the hair that he had, the wild hair that he
Crazy
had.
hair.
Yeah.
But it was really about, the awe and wonder of the natural world, that we now just think sophistication is better than simplicity. You look at just the human body and you have to just go, wow, what a miracle each and every human is, right? And yet, how easy is it to just king hit someone, right? And you go, you can't do that if you value life, human life, animal life, everything. So that's the first relationship, is just being in awe of nature and wonder at everything that exists, the confluence of events for us even existing. So when you do that, then you go, okay, there's a bit of a wow. Now you've got to look internally. So the second relationship is that with ourselves. How self-aware are we? Are we aware of our triggers, our filters, the way we view the world and color it the way we've been brought up to see things? If I'm a racist, I'm going to see things in a certain way.
If I'm a racist, you'd usually say, I'm not racist, but.
No, I'm
Yeah.
not a racist, but.
Yeah.
But it's true that, and we have patterns, and a lot of people just run on autopilot. They don't intervene and catch something and question it. They just go with it. And so having that knowledge of ourselves, that deep knowledge, then we're able to change our thoughts and in turn change our actions. And so that awareness is huge. So once we've got an awareness of the miracle that every human is and our self-knowledge, now we can actually start to make changes out in the world. So the third relationship is that with our inner circle. friends, family, people that we deal with on a regular basis? Do we treat them like they deserve to be treated? Or are we treating them because of either how we feel on the day or because of our filters, that the voices in our head that tell us how to see them? So again, more awareness. And then the final one is our relationship to community. And that could be anyone at the end of your street who you've never met or someone on the other side of the world. Because at the end of the day, we're all connected by an invisible thread called humanity. And we don't always see everyone as us. It's often an us and them thing. And I think if we can address all of those relationships, the world starts to look very different.
The last part there, I know one part in the book you spoke about was knock on your neighbour's door and introduce yourself. But it was, I don't know if you remember the movie, it was probably in the 80s that came out, Baraka. It was,
I love that one.
Isn't it amazing?
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Not a word is spoken.
Not a word is spoken.
But it is just a sensation. I've got it on DVD at home with
So have I.
with the 1,000 odd DVDs that I have that I haven't watched for years because of streaming. But it is an unbelievable movie. But there's part of it. Well, it's the whole premise of the movie, I suppose. And what you just reminded me of then, growing up, all the neighbours, we all knew each other. We all knew each other. We all knew who we liked, who we didn't like on that particular day or week. As you said, we're out playing cricket in the streets, riding our bikes around the park. All the parents knew each other, and it was community. And it wasn't community through just family; it was community through neighbours. Uh, one of the things that you see today, especially with the apartment living, and next to our offices here, we've got some big apartments. They just remind me of beehives. You've got 1,000 people living in this tower. Nobody knows each other. But the interesting thing is people should understand they need to put their blinds down.
Yeah.
But at night, when all the lights are on and you just see these little bees just all humming around in the tower next door or over here, and it's because they're these glass towers. So you just see, and it is like a beehive, but nobody knows each other. Nobody's connected anymore.
Our old village used to be the people who lived around you.
Yeah.
That's now migrated online. Like
Yeah.
you can stay in your little box now, but connect online to people elsewhere and never speak to the person who lives next door to you. And, there is a fear about, locking yourself in. You come home, you drive into your garage, you pull down the blinds, you lock the door, you turn on your security cameras. I'm home now. And what that does is it just alienates us from each other. We are disconnected. In the most connected time ever, we are the most disconnected we've ever been. And it's a real shame that we either do it for one of two reasons. One is we're fearful, or two, which to me is even more disturbing, disinterested.
Yeah.
And that's where we are.
But Alex, once again, we'll go back to the good old days when we were growing up. Someone would ring the doorbell or knock on the door, and there was excitement throughout the house. Everyone jumped up. Who is it? Who is it? There was such excitement. Nowadays, it's who the hell is that?
Yeah.
What have my kids done now? So it's, but it's just like there's all this suspicion of why is somebody knocking on my door at night. Completely. It's just complete. It's the disconnect that we have in society.
People don't like drop-ins anymore, do they?
No.
Right? The thought of someone just dropping and the doorbell rings and you, as you say, you're worried who might be there.
Quick look at the security cameras.
Absolutely. And this is what happens.
Yeah.
This is what we do. So, I talk in the book about go and talk to your neighbours because we don't. Did you know we have a National Neighbour Day here in Australia?
No, I didn't.
And there is a National Neighbour Day in most countries. Here in Australia, it happens, I think, the last Sunday in March. It's run by Relationships Australia. And there's events going on and that sort of thing. But a simple thing anyone can do is go and do a street barbecue or something and have everyone come out and get to talk to each other in a safe way, but just getting to know each other. Because, people have each other's backs if they know each other. If you don't, it's like Neighbourhood Watch.
Yeah.
It has the potential to assist everyone, but you got to be part of it. You got to be connected, and that's a simple step everyone can do. Go and talk to people in your street.
Alex, you spoke earlier about globally. If everyone did this globally, is that a real utopian world? You know, George Orwell's The Time Machine. Is that George Orwell? Or,
Uh, I
Jules
just
Verne?
remember Rod Taylor in The Time
Yeah,
Machine, my
that's right.
favourite
So
movie.
or was it Jules Verne? It was one of them. Anyway,
Yeah.
so it wasn't George Orwell. No, it was Jules Verne, I think.
Mm.
The Time Machine, and you know that utopian world at the end of that movie, and you know it's when I look at this and I look at say Melbourne as an example. I think Melbourne has done it pretty well
Mm.
on a global scale, you know, in respect to integration
Yeah.
of different cultures and different people from different religions, backgrounds, languages, and blended fairly successfully into society. When I look globally, though, it seems to be, or maybe it's just what you see online, but there are some societies where they will not accept you if you are not exactly where you who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that used to be tribal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once upon a time, this is our tribe and we don't accept outsiders. And now it's more sort of region or country or could be religion based or ethnicity or color of your skin. I mean, we had the White Australia policy for many years here in this country, and it was, you know, in our generation, it was only stopped. We were alive, so it wasn't that long ago. I then look at tomorrow night. I'm having dinner. There's four of us having dinner together. There's one of us is a 12-year-old which came here at the age of 12 as a refugee from Iraq. Very successful in life, done really well. Another one is from the back streets of Frankston, rough and tumble back streets of Frankston, who ended up being a pro golfer whose career got cut short because of an idiot in a car after he came runner-up in the Spanish
Okay.
Pro-Am, you know, and now very successful in real estate.
Mm.
Another one is from Argentina. And then there's myself, a child of migrants who grew up in two different religions, two different ethnicity households where my mum had a philosophy. Anyone is welcome in our house unless you're an idiot. Yeah, so it's, if you're it was a great rule to have, and it was a great rule for us growing up because we got to meet so many different people from different cultures and different nationalities and different religions and different sexualities,
Mm.
not just different genders. So it's mum working at Telstra, or at the time it was called Telecom, as a telephonist, and a lot of her friends were gay males who would come to our rock and roll parties.
Yeah, cool.
You know, so so they were just good rock and roll parties that mum and dad used to put on. So I think from that perspective, when you're looking at all of it, I think Melbourne has done it really well. But I mean, there's still tension, as there is everywhere. There are racists
Yeah.
everywhere you look. But how, from a global perspective, does this become something? Because people still like to have their national identities, or you know, there's still the troubles aren't as bad in Ireland now as what they were. So it's not just what happens in the Middle East. So it's you know the Protestants and the Catholics in
Yeah,
Ireland.
yeah.
So there was a civil war for 100 years going on there.
Mm.
So how do we have this change in respect to values, philosophy on a global scale that can actually be accepted? I have a thought process, but I want to hear your answer.
All right. Well, is it utopia? Yeah, sure. But there's no utopia without you. So it needs every one of us to
But
say
is
this.
someone's form of utopia different than another person's form of utopia?
Yeah, absolutely. It is all subjective. But at the end of the day, I liken it to coming here to see you.
Mm.
If I didn't put your address in my GPS, I wouldn't know how to get here. So I put a destination in. Now, I might not have been able to get all the way here. There could have been roadblocks, but I try and get as close as I can to here. And if I have to walk the rest, I'll walk the rest. And so, yes, I'm setting some very ambitious goals through this book, but you need to have something to strive for. And I'm tired of us tweaking things around the edges and putting band-aids on things. We've been doing that for years. You know, a new law will come out and we'll try and solve a problem with it. Maybe what we need to do is just clean it out and start fresh. But very few governments are willing to do that because it's not popular. Um, I think we need to look at this on a global scale. There's no point saying, okay, Melbourne people, everyone take on values, but the rest of the world don't. It's not going to work. So this needs to be a movement like other movements that have taken on globally. and have seen real change happen. And that's why I say this isn't a book, this is a movement. The book is just a way to document my manifesto, I guess. But this is really about trying to put pressure on governments, put pressure on educators to change our curriculum so we can change the people that come out into the world. Now, I'm not saying this is a quick fix by any means. This is a multi-generational approach because it's going to take, the next 15 years for the kids, if they started today learning about all these things, to come through. But then they become the parents of tomorrow and their kids come through, and then they can come home and talk to their adults who get it already. So over the next 20, 30, 50 years, we start to see a transformation in the population. What I'm saying is we need to start. The issues that we face, poverty, homelessness, yes, we've got to keep feeding the homeless, but we need to solve homelessness. It's like being in a boat that's taking on water. Yes, we can keep throwing the water out with a bucket, but we need to just plug the hole.
Eventually, we're going to get tired and the water will just come in and we'll sink.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
We are sinking in many ways, but, we could solve homelessness tomorrow. For me, homelessness is not a housing issue. It's a people issue. We haven't decided that we want to solve it. We have the wealth. We have the abundance to do that. We're just choosing not to distribute it where it needs to be to solve those problems. And so that comes from changing our thoughts. And that's why this is called the philosophy, because you can't change the actions without first changing the thoughts. And people say, is it too late for us oldies who aren't going to go through school? No, it's not too late. We've probably got a better chance at educating our young people. But if we can start to become self-aware of how we think and catch those thoughts and go, well, hang on, does that really make sense anymore? And start questioning everything that we do, then we're in a position to be able to start to make those changes whilst we wait for those new generations to move forward.
I remember watching, it have to be over 25 years ago now, the movie Independence Day.
Yeah.
Okay, and
is it that old? Jeez,
I have to be that old.
Yeah.
But one of the questions I had after the movie, and maybe it was because I'm an adult watching it now, is why is it at a time of potential destruction of the earth, all of a sudden we love our fellow man and we'll fight together? Because we've never been invaded by the American version of some alien, group. We've been invaded by the aliens from that planet X, who all group together to come and do us. But it's all of a sudden, it's a case of, well, the Russians and the Americans were working together to be able to save the planet. Whereas 24 hours earlier, they were spying on each other and ready to press the red button to let go of 25 times way too many nuclear weapons that we need to blow up the earth. I mean, how many times do you need to blow up the earth? So
I thought about that too. I always thought if a meteor was coming at the earth, would we all band together or would we?
Well, it's not going to hit Australia, so let the Americans solve the issue.
But you look at what happened during COVID.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just turned on each other.
Yeah.
So I don't feel that we would necessarily do that, because at the end of it's like when there's a tragedy, you still get the looters coming in.
Yeah.
This mentality of I'm in it for myself still pervades all of us. Not all of us, but throughout all of us. And until we change that thinking, we're still going to be facing this. I'd like to think the same as you, that, could we all be together against the big foe? But I don't feel that good about that.
It'd be nice if we could do it without the big foe coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, so without the threat from the big foe in the first place.
But you know what? It reminds me of watching Parliament, and you see both sides going at each other. Then they pause for a minute and welcome the dignitaries who are in the gallery, and then they go back to fighting each other again. For me, it's just a farce.
It is. I was at a cocktail dinner once, not so long ago, about 5 years ago or so, and Dan Andrews spoke there. And his speech was basically taken off him because Anthony Pratt gave a speech prior and actually pointed out all these dot points that Dan Andrews had in his speech. He had to speak off the cuff.
Mm.
And I must admit, I was shocked at how good he was at speaking off the cuff.
Cool.
And I openly say that as somebody who is not a fan, but I was really, really shocked at how amazing he was. And that's where you see that in the chamber, because we know a lot of the questions are set up, all the questions are set up, obviously, in the chamber when they're talking. But in saying that, still seeing somebody who could just go bang and talk about so many other things off the cuff. And I'm sitting there thinking, that was good.
Mm.
Doesn't mean I necessarily agree.
Why couldn't you use your skills for good instead of evil?
Darth Vader, so it's just reminds me of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So many good skills, it's you can choose, can't you? But it's when people say, well, just be careful of the consequences. Well, consequences can be both positive and negative. Everyone always seems to have a negative connotation towards the word consequence, but it's Darth Vader. He just didn't use the Force for good. So simple as that. So it's but he had the Force, so he could use it. Yeah. So okay, so from all this, then, what does success mean in society built, on your philosophy? So, I'm an avid reader of the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius Meditations. So I love reading all that. Don't necessarily agree with it all, but I love reading it,
Yeah.
and I do agree with quite a lot of it as well. It's helped me, I suppose, become a bit of a centrist in some ways too. Or being able to challenge some people on some thought processes at times, not necessarily from a political belief or anything like that, just a thought process. Yeah. Probably my sons mostly. So they challenge me quite a bit. So, but what then does success mean in society, built on your philosophy?
I guess success, the way it's been modeled to us, is the traditional method of, achieving and accumulating and achieving. And for me, again, that rang hollow. The cover of my book is Maslow's hierarchy, effectively a pyramid. We're so keen to get to the top and self-actualize that we're not really taking everyone with us. The social responsibility that's lacking is, to me, the definition of not being successful right now. If you look at the business world, success means a business that grew more this year than it did last year, right? If you're not growing, you're going backwards. And I think there's a lot to answer for that, because in order to keep growing, what are the casualties that need to happen? So profit, and profit's not a bad thing, but continual growth, what suffers to get continual growth all the time? There's nothing in the natural world that grows forever, right? So if I have a good year and then I have a bad year, it's not deemed a success anymore. If I talk in the book about the movie Speed, and the bus there that had to stay above 50 miles an hour or the bomb would go off. So if you liken that to the growth of a business, imagine every year, because keeping it at the same level is not success in the business world. Let's say I've got to go a kilometer faster every minute. How long can you keep doing that for before you crash?
Yeah.
So, in the virtual world of everything else that happens, what is the toll that happens to customers, to staff, to stakeholders for success in the business world to keep going? So I call on business leaders to question what success means. Is it how far I can take my team? Like, what can I do for the team? Can I create a better life for them? I often think that success isn't just having people working in a company, it's having people happy and satisfied in a company and having meaning in what they're doing on their daily basis.
Our people and culture team would love you for that,
Yeah.
saying that.
But
And I agree with it, by the way.
But meaning and purpose in you think about, what does your job take from your life? What can it give to your life, right? And
I spend more time with my work colleagues than I do my family.
yeah. So you'd want it to be giving you something other than just money.
Yeah.
So, what can it give for humanity, for people to be doing things that they enjoy? So it means sometimes if someone's in the wrong role, sticking it out or staying there is not good for them. It's not good for the business. So we need to find ways to align what people need with what a business needs. And as you say, that is a lot of the role of HR when they're meeting people for the first time to see, are they aligned?
Yeah.
Because you don't want a round peg in a square hole.
Yeah.
But success beyond that is more about what can we contribute to all of us. That for me is success. What's your definition? You had one up your sleeve there.
Listen, I think a definition of success for me is always personal.
Mhm.
I don't. So people will always have different definitions of success, and my definition of success, if I was going back, say, 20 years ago, would be very different than my definition of success today. So, 20 years ago, my boys were 6 and 8, and it was an upheaval in our lives. And I was running a successful business, but I also had to be a full-time dad at the same time. And so my definition of success then was being present in their life. And that meant that I had to get up at 2 a.m. in the morning to start work, to be able to do the work that I had to do, be able to get in to the office, to be able to get them to school, to be able to still be part of their lives and still actually be present. So the definition of success back then was, prior to that occurring, was monetary.
Mm.
It was the house, the cars. It was a monetary thing. It was a materialistic, look at me, look what I have. One of the biggest detriments of what occurred then, because I didn't have much time up my sleeve, was my health. My health, I look back now because it was so long ago, 20 years ago, and I look at it with fond memories. If I was back there 20 years ago, my God, it was hard. Thank God for my parents on weekends that would go and stay at their place. And, so it's who they loved it because they got the whole weekend with their grandsons. So definition of success back then was trying to keep everything together. For me, definition of success today, I was actually asked by a friend the other day, if you had a meme came up of where Robin Williams was the genie in that cartoon, Aladdin, thank you. And what are your 3 wishes? And it's interesting, well, I don't have 3 wishes, and the reason being is because the everything that I want is actually in my control.
Mhm.
I actually don't need a genie to come out with Robin Williams' personality, just paint yourself blue, Alex. I don't need a genie to come out with Robin Williams' personality to grant me my 3 wishes. I just strive towards them, and my 3 wishes are different now. One of my personal wishes is for my 28 and 26-year-olds to just have a happy life
Mhm.
and actually be content in what they do. And the difference is, whereas once upon a time they were reliant on me, now I have to make appointments to see them. Friday night, my son and I, we're going to the football for a laugh to watch the Bulldogs play Essendon's under-13 team. But to me, they're the few hours together that are very, very special.
Yeah.
So they can never be taken away from us. And they're really so. It's very different. So yes, I have a monetary value of success, but completely different reasons. It's not for the bigger house, the nicer cars, or anything like that. I've got a nice lifestyle as it is, but it's for our charitable giving program.
Yeah.
As we go forward in the future, and my sons are well aware of that as well. So it's not going to be a surprise if I passed away long before I planned to. But that's within my control. But last year, aiming towards that goal, I burnt myself out quite badly. And that was a detriment to so many other aspects of my life. But I had to be able to acknowledge that. So I failed myself last year in trying to grow something or do stuff which probably wasn't the right thing for us to do. So that's where you have to also be able to say pivot. And, for the last 6 months, I've been far happier as a result. Or probably the last several months, been far happier as a result. Second part of success for me is my physical health and living to 105.
Yeah.
My father, who was a non-drinker, non-smoker his whole life, who internalized all his problems rather than And I'm not saying, he was the most softest, beautiful man you ever meet. Everyone who meets him just wants to cuddle him. But in saying that, though, he never expressed concerns. He went silent, and when he went silent, I knew I was in trouble. My mum, you knew you were in trouble. You heard it, but it's sometimes felt it. But with Dad, when he didn't speak to me, that traumatized me because he was a beautiful storyteller. But I saw the demise of my father, who had a stroke at 62, who had a heart attack at 64, triple bypass, 3 more heart attacks in the last 6 years of his life, Alzheimer's. Died at 79. Got the 9-year anniversary of his passing this September. That is not going to happen to me. Now, that doesn't mean, okay, I'll do the opposite to him. I'll smoke and I'll drink and I'll take party drugs or something, but it's more the fact of ensuring that I have a very healthy brain, ensuring that for me, meditation and mindfulness is vitally important for my life, to be able to ground me. And that's where I lost that last year. So for me, my physical and mental health is vitally important, and that's success where, I plan on not leaving. If nothing changes, where we are medically at the moment is one of the things you actually have in here about the hospital systems and medical systems. But if nothing changes, medically, I still plan on going out at 105, and that will be because of an accident swinging from a chandelier, not because I had Alzheimer's. I don't want to have my family have to look after me the way my mum had to with Dad. And, she was a saint to him. She really was. She always said he started his life in an institution. He's not ending it. In the last 6 months, she had to put him in a home. But I look at that and I don't want my loved ones to go through that. So for me, my physical and mental health, if my children ever bless me with grandchildren, I want to be able to, at the age of 9, to be able to pick them up and throw them in the air. I want to be able to fill them full of Red Bull and send them home to their parents just out of spite. So it's
Payback.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of payback. But so that's the other form of it. And for me now, it's just about life experiences. It's I got asked by Jamie in here once. He said, 9 years time, be 65, you can retire. So I'm not retiring. First of all, what am I going to do for the next 40 years of my life? But secondly, this is what I love doing. For over 30 years, I've made some of the most beautiful friendships out of this industry, and I get to socialize all day. It's just that I have knowledge in a particular area that people utilize, but I get to meet people and socialize all day. So that's the other area of my success is to just be able to have great community around me, beautiful family, and just be able to move forward in life without necessarily caring the world. But I do look at my children, and especially my youngest, and I'm not saying anything bad about my oldest, but he, from the day he was born, had this giving heart of wanting to help the underprivileged. And you can sort of see that coming down through the genes, I think, from, his Ada side of especially. But will always go and fight for the oppressed or the underprivileged. And you see that in him, and I just think, yeah, he's channeled that in a really good way, and he could do a lot of things that your book actually speaks about. If I could actually get him to read, I think he would.
There's
really...
an audiobook. There's an audiobook.
Yeah, I know. He's even getting to listen to podcasts at times. So it's can you do an online games that he could play it? So that might help. But it's I think this would be something that he would really resonate with. So you talk about the schooling system. He was not, putting him through Gary Grammar was just going to be a complete waste of money at the end, so I took him out. But that was what he wanted, and he thrived as a result. Not Gary is a great school, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't for him. So the way he was academically inclined was not Carey. I'd gladly recommend Carey to any parent. But for my son, my youngest in particular, who was not that way academically inclined, it was not for him. But my friend Lucas Petrovich, what he's doing with the 2,000-acre farm, that would be perfect for him. So learning philosophy, still learning your math and English and all the rest of it, working with animals, growing food organically.
We need to do more of
That's
that.
where my
Yeah.
son would thrive.
Well, that's the thing. We don't do
My
enough.
youngest,
Your
that being
youngest, yeah.
yeah,
And so doing more for the individual and tapping into who an individual is at an earlier age.
yeah,
Because all we do is we give them the same subjects all the way, and then at a very late stage, they can start to choose their options and diversify. And if I think back to, learning cos, sine, tan and all that, I'd never use that. And I knew I was never going to use it. I would much rather have gone in a more creative bent for me.
yeah.
But we don't do that. Some schools do. Montessori is very good at doing
Yeah,
that.
both my boys started Montessori.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I love the Montessori ideology about, working with the individual, and, they work with more independence and animals and all sorts of things. And I
yeah.
think all those things are really good for tapping into an individual at an earlier stage so that they can start to pursue their interests. Now, not everyone knows what they want to do. Some people my age still don't know what they want to be when they grow up. But
Do we have to grow up?
well, thanks, Peter Pan.
Apparently, a number hit me the other, a few weeks ago. Where apparently I'm 56 now. It's just like, no, I'm still 15.
Well, maybe it's 50 plus GST.
Yeah, quite a bit of GST.
So, yeah, I think that, the education system has a lot to answer for, and I think there's the potential for us to all level up if we do that. But, getting back to, your view of success, it is often very personal, particularly in our younger years, because the goals for us are we need to set ourselves up.
Mm.
Okay. And the question is, at what point are we set up? When do we have enough? When do we know we've done enough to survive? And, having your superannuation to look after you, and investments, and, and I know, you spend a lot of time in that space. But I guess it's also finding that balance. Like, you know, we want to set ourselves up for financial success, but you need your health, as you've spoken
Absolutely.
about. Without that, nothing else really matters. We also need a
You
planet
need
to,
your mental health.
yeah,
You need happiness.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's what's the use of having everything in the world if you're miserable? I
Well,
mean, or just actually have very pessimistic, horrid life. You're actually not enjoying, or actually helping or giving back. And that's the part. Well, from my personal perspective, what
mm.
I don't understand.
And I have a bit in the book where I talk about helping others is selfishly good for us.
Yeah,
And by that I mean that, if you're going through depression, one of the
our partners would also suggest that too.
yes,
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah, true equality.
um, is that you can combat some forms of depression purely by helping other people and
Mm.
getting outside of your own head. And I think that we don't see enough value in doing that. And we say, yeah, I want to do some volunteering, but I'll do that, when I've got enough and I'm set up and everything's good. And I don't think we realize the value
I'm
that
not
helping
ready to get
others.
married yet. I'm not ready to have children yet. So I want children, but I'm not ready yet. I need another 50,000 in the bank first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's always a better day that will come. And
yeah.
unfortunately,
My oldest wasn't planned, but at the same time, he's definitely wasn't planned.
yeah,
But I knew I always wanted to be a dad.
yeah,
He decided to appear several years earlier than what was
yeah.
expected. But we have
You found a way, right?
absolutely found a way. As I'm just happened to be double his life, and I've always just been double his age, basically. So it's and it's so it's we found a way, and we have a really good, strong relationship. I
Yeah.
think as a result of that,
And that's it. I think
I was the
Nike.
youngest dad in the schoolyard. Sure, so made me the fittest.
I think Nike got it right when it said, just do it. Sometimes you don't think about it too much, just get it done. And I think if we start thinking that, our true north is our values deep inside us that we tap into sometimes. We know what's right, but we get pulled to magnetic north.
Yeah,
And that could be because of profitability, because of politics, other agendas. And I think as part of that second relationship of knowing ourselves is getting back in touch with that true north feeling and being able to be honest with ourselves that this is me, this is how I feel. This is noise. It's pulling me, It's certainly there, but I need to be true here.
Yeah, I think so. Alex, I'm just going to ask a couple of quick fire questions to end, if that's okay. First of all, if there's one thing that comes out of the book, just one thing that you could immediately change, what would that be? Just one.
One, education system. Completely. That would change everything.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
I've always said, and if we're looking from a global perspective, I think societies thrive that aren't patriarchal,
Yeah.
where women have the same ability to have the same education as men. I mean, there's roles in life for both genders. There are certainly roles in life, but I think a society thrives that is educated, and through that education, you actually have the ability to be able to think. So I'm not talking about education where it's very pushing students down one particular line, which we do see in a lot of cases. We'll see online, at least anyway. I don't know how about it, how prevalent it actually really is. But I think where you have a good, strong education and that provides equality, and where you have equality, you tend to have safer, more inclusive societies. That's my philosophy anyway.
I can tell you, when I saw that Susan Ley was taking the reins of the Liberal Party, I was very pleased to see that we're going to have a bit more of a caring approach from that side. And yeah, we should have equality and not have some more equal than others.
I agree. Yeah, okay. It's your football team.
I'm agnostic.
I thought you were a Carlton man.
I'm Carlton because I used to be as a kid, but now I've decided.
They're no good.
Stop
But
it.
Essendon, man. We play you round 24. So
Yeah, well,
we're just going for a laugh.
all right,
We're just going to go
Carlton.
there for a laugh.
We'll go with Carlton.
You are a Carlton man. Okay.
All right.
So we're not going to go and have a laugh at both of our teams?
No. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, okay. So tell me, over the last, whether it be history or the last decade or wherever, tell me your favourite movie.
My favourite movie? Oh, God. So many for different reasons. I did see one recently called Origins. It's probably not very well known at all, but it looks...
I've heard of it, but I can't place it. I know I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Not well known at all.
I go and see a lot of indie movies, that's why, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it just looks at some of the origins of some of the cultures in society, and for me, it resonated quite strongly. Particularly, I saw it last year, and in the midst of doing all this, it resonated very strongly.
Okay, last question. A band or a musician that you would love to have seen play live that you haven't?
In Excess.
Okay.
Michael Hutchence. I never got to see him. I was in London the same time they were performing, but I didn't get to see...
Famous Wembley performance?
No, not that one.
Yeah.
It was 1986. I don't think it was that one, but In Excess. I just love the music. I love the guy. I love everything. I go and see In Excess tribute bands all the time, so that's as good as I can get.
Probably one of the top 5 greatest frontmen of all time, Michael Hutchence. Yeah, so gone way too early, but is just this... actually, I was reading the book Surrender by Bono, and he spoke of his friendship with Michael Hutchence, and, very, very close friendship. But yeah, just his character, who he was, everything about him. It's, so I actually thought JD Vance tried to do an okay job, but pretty Vegas. Yeah, you just...
no, not JD Vance.
No, JD Vance, he was the new frontman for a while, but, I think the only band that's ever been able to replace a frontman, do it successfully, was actually AC/DC. Yeah, so it's, so Bon Scott, once again, one of the most amazing.
JD Fortuna.
JD Fortuna, okay.
Yeah, I think Vance is the vice president.
At events.
I don't want to see him at the front of a band.
So he's not the type should be in front of NXS. So it's no, we'll go JD Fortune. That's it.
I did enjoy his movie though, his book that he wrote.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Alex, thank you for coming in. We've known each other for a number of years. The book is tremendous. It's a tremendous read. It does certainly make you think. How do we get a global movement happening? And I remember saying to my sons once, well, it starts in your own backyard.
Absolutely. If anyone's interested, the website, thephilosophy.net, can find out more information about it.
Thank you for coming in. Go Bombers.
Thanks, Tony.
The Kofkin Bond podcast is a product from Kofkin Bond and Company, which we are an authorized representative of Count Financial. All information in this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional, finance, legal, or tax advice. The hosts of the Kofkin Bond podcast are not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Before making any financial decision, you should read the product disclosure statement and, if necessary, consult a licensed financial professional. Do not take financial advice from the podcast. For more information, head to the disclaimer page on the Kofkin Bond website, or you can find resources on the ASIC website and find a registered financial professional near you. In the spirit of reconciliation, Kofkin Bond & Co. and the hosts of the Kofkin Bond podcast acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today.